Hello, everybody. This is Ty from Ty Hot Takes coming at you with a tech hot take today. I swear this does pertain to gaming, but we'll get to the gaming here in just a minute here. So this tweet here, I read this morning. This comes from Pirate Nation. Check him out if you want. Link in description. And he says Google is locking down Android. From September 2026, all apps, including those outside of the Play Store, must come from verified developers. No more anonymous side loads, and this will first be implemented in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. Pirate Nation posted another tweet here that says, say goodbye to PS2, PS3, and Switch emulation on Android phones next year. Any emulator that requires sideloading won't be available on most Android phones. And he posts a screenshot from Android Authority here that says this small change might kill emulation on Android phones next year. And even they say you may soon lose access to popular emulators for PS2, PS3, Switch, and more. So key emphasis on may here because it is not exactly guaranteed to completely shut down these said emulators, but we'll get to that here in just a second. So I've got this article here from Ars Technica where the headline says Google will block sideloading of unverified Android apps starting next year. Also, link for this article will be in the description as well. And in this article, they say that in September 2026, Google plans to launch this feature in Brazil, Indonesia, Singapore, and Thailand. The next step is still hazy, but Google is targeting 2027 to expand the verification requirements globally. So if you thought that this was just going to be other people problems and it's only going to affect Brazil, Indonesia, and Singapore, and Thailand, I got news for you. This is coming to the globe in 2027, at least according to this article from Ars Technica. Anyways, earlier I questioned the you may soon lose access to popular emulators for the PS2, PS3, Switch, and more because I don't think that's exactly guaranteed yet. So the dealio with this verification system is that they want every single app that's on the Play Store and off the Play Store to be verified by their new verification system. So that means that they aren't exactly getting rid of your ability to sideload altogether. So you can still sideload an app, but you can't sideload that app if that app doesn't have the special check mark. If that app doesn't have the special check mark, your Android device is going to possibly just spit out the .apk file or delete it or whatever the fuck it's going to do. But here's how the verification system works. So Google plans to create a streamlined Android developer console, which devs will use if they plan to distribute apps outside of the Play Store. After verifying their identities, developers will have to register the package name and signing keys of their apps. Google won't check the content or functionality of the apps, though. Let me repeat that because it's really important. Google won't check the content or functionality of the apps. So basically, if you are developing a PS2, PS3, or Switch emulator, for example, Google is not saying, oh, you can't have that specific emulator. But if you are going to develop for the PS3 emulator, for example, you need to have a checkmarked identity with Google no matter what, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it from Google. And this sucks because this means that developers can't anonymously develop for these emulators. So if you are a developer for the PS2 emulator, the PS3 emulator, or the Switch emulator, that means that these developers are going to have to register with Google with their real names, and there are some privacy concerns around that for developers that don't want to get ousted for developing for an app that they do not want to be associated with professionally. But as I said earlier, Google won't check the content or functionality of the apps, and that's a big if. I think that there's going to be one possible scenario where Google, they actually respect the rules that they've set here, where they say, hey, we just need a little verification check mark to make sure that this is coming from a legit human being, and we'll allow you to develop a Switch emulator, and that'll just be that. It's not going to ruin the reputation of said developers, and everyone will be at least sort of happy, even though this policy change is going to be more restricted no matter what way you cut it. And I think the other possibility, the more pessimistic one anyway, is maybe Google finds a tricky way to specifically target these emulation projects. Like maybe, for example, they deem that Switch emulation should be illegal because their buddy Nintendo told them so. And it's possible that Google could specifically deny verification for developers of the Switch emulator. But as I said earlier, Google won't check the content or functionality of the apps. So I think that's still very much in the air as to whether or not Google is going to be respectful of not checking what's inside of the apps that they're putting the checkmark on. So time will tell on that front. But also, before we wrap up here, I kind of want to give the Google devil its due here. And I don't think that Google is making these policy changes for absolutely no reason whatsoever. If you are a pessimist, I do kind of agree with you that the end result of this policy change means more control for Google, more restrictions on Android, and I am generally not a fucking fan of that shit. However, I don't think it would be fair to say that this is just a power grab and there's no other logic behind this decision. In this Ars Technica article, it says that Google used to do very little curation of the Play Store. Trust me, I have seen some sketchy shit on the Play Store. I've seen fake Minecraft apps, root your Android device apps where they don't actually root your Android device or jailbreak it or whatever. And the Play Store definitely was like a crazy Wild West situation like 13 years ago, but since then it has stepped up its security, and they actually do have to do some basic security checks on applications that are within the Play Store ecosystem. But the article goes on to say, but it has been long sought to improve the platform's reputation as being less than secured than the Apple Store. Years ago, you could publish actual exploits in the official store to gain root access on phones, but there are now multiple reviews and detection mechanisms to reduce the prevalence of malware and banned content. While the Play Store is still not perfect, Google claims that apps sideloaded from outside its store are 50 times more likely to contain malware. Now, I've seen some people online say that that's a big if true statement, the 50 times more likely to get malware off of the Play Store as opposed to being on it. I tend to believe Google in this case here, because a lot of the times when people run into shady apps, it usually is just on some random website that is totally unverified, and I do tend to believe that that's how a lot of users get themselves in trouble, is because that they're being exposed to the Wild West of the internet and they're just installing programs willy-nilly. So I just thought that that's important to bring up, because I do think that even if this is a completely evil power grab from Google and that's all there is to it, and they're like in their ivory towers and they're like, well, haha, we have more control. Even if that's true, I still think that there's some security logic behind this, considering you really shouldn't be installing random apps outside of the Play Store if you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But if you do know what the fuck you're doing, then fucking have at it. Like, yeah. I sincerely hope that these changes aren't that bad. I know it sounds like cope, but I thought I'd provide an alternative explanation of the situation, just in case everyone is only seeing one side of the story, which is a little bit doom and gloom. I mean, it still kind of is, because the net result is going to be a more restricted platform. It sucks, but if we could still have sideloading in some capacity, and if Google does respect the rule, where they say they aren't going to check the content of the app itself, then maybe it won't be as shitty as we originally thought. But anyways, guys, this has been Ty from Ty Hot Takes. Make sure to leave a like, a subscribe, maybe a comment. Maybe comment on these. And I will see y'all the fuck later. Peace out.